Hello, everyone. Hi, great to see you all. My name is Joy Langley, and I'm an emotional intelligence coach, and I'm also a therapist. And I work with business owners to help them to break all the emotional triggers that are happening in business. They happen in business, they make you feel miserable, they make you stop sometimes. I want you to be able to continue to push through your business by breaking those particular triggers so you can be happy, successful, and yeah, comfortable. Now, Robin, my guest today, is a real expert on assessments for emotional intelligence. And just before we came on, we were talking about the way that I don't particularly use lots of measurements, but other people do. So we'll talk about that too. But my guest today, Robin, he is a specialist coach and he works with business leaders. He's a keynote speaker across the world, across the globe. He's traveled UK, USA, Middle East, South Africa, India. Robin has been there. And today is really my way of finding out why do we need things like Myers-Briggs tests and DISC tests and anything else? Because I think I break out in a rash when I have to be given a test. So we'll find out more about that. But yes, optimizing human potential and emotional intelligence, Robin. So thank you for coming on today. Perhaps I'll ask you, just to kick things off, how do you define emotional intelligence?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me onto your show, Joy. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I will qualify some of the things that you've said in the introduction. Whilst I use a lot of emotional intelligence assessments, I'm not an expert in all of them. There is about 10,000 different tests on emotional intelligence or psychometric tests, which measure personality and behavior. And I'm not an expert in all of them. I use the world's global assessments, DISC, as you've mentioned, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, um, Ocean, and I use an EQI 2.0 assessment, which we'll dig down into in more detail as we go through the conversation. But to answer your question directly, uh, I define emotional intelligence very simply. Emotional intelligence is the way in which you combine your thinking with your feelings in order to make good quality decisions and build up authentic relationships with other people.
That's a great definition, Robin, and that really falls in line with what I actually do believe too. Um, there's a lot of measurements, as you said, you'll tell us about them, but beyond that, human beings are really, and that includes me, I'm just really concerned about having good relationships, uh, relationships that happen at home in my personal life, but they also spill over into my business life. And for me, it's about being aware. Awareness is the center of what I do. Um, are you aware of what's happening? Do you even care about it? And if you do care about it, do you want to change it? So, your definition, spot on. I love that, Robin. So let's just jump straight in here. I've got a question already, I think. Let's think Bruce has got a question for us. And Bruce wants to learn how EQ can be improved. So that's something which we'll be coming back to at some
I
point.
thought, yes, definitely, Bruce. So hang on, that is a real fundamental question to our conversation. So hopefully we'll give you some indications around that.
Sounds brilliant. Now let's go back to EQ because I started talking about, I suppose, emotional intelligence more intensely on LinkedIn a good year and a bit ago. And at the beginning, I was quite annoyed that this thing existed. I thought, well, emotional intelligence, what does that mean? I got really quite annoyed with it and I got used to it. Obviously, Daniel Goleman's 5 pillars that indicate how you can look at emotional intelligence. So your awareness, and when you're aware of it, what do you do with it? How does that impact your motivation? How does that impact your ability to be empathic? And then how does that develop, or let's say, impact your interpersonal relationships? So you can look at 5 areas. Now, you have got measurements which you have been using, and I'm quite curious as to whether this is just another corporate fad.
Oh, that is a big question. Let's go back to emotional intelligence itself. A lot of people thought that emotional intelligence was a fad back in the 90s when Daniel Goldman published his works. But here we are 30 odd years later, and it's now being recognized as a fundamental part of good corporate leadership. So if we look at emotional intelligence assessments and measures, these are not a fad because these help to support emotional intelligence and emotional intelligence development.
Okay, that's a good answer. That's a good answer. So it's not a fad because it's been around for a while. Is that's what you're saying?
Yes, this is what I'm saying. And over the years, a number of measures of emotional intelligence have come onto the commercial marketplace. The EQI 2.0 that I mentioned earlier on was developed by an Israeli psychologist called Reuven Bar-On. And he developed this and started working on this in the early 90s, even before Daniel Goldman published his books, because he was tuned into the academic research around emotional intelligence. Now, his measure is probably the most scientifically valid and reliable assessment of emotional intelligence that's available. It measures a mixture of trait and ability. Now, there are other assessments on the marketplace. The originators of emotional intelligence, the original academics, Peter Salovey and Jack Mayer, have worked with David Caruso to work on an ability-based emotional intelligence assessment. Now, this is measuring your ability to work with emotional intelligence, and it's a different measure. And then after Daniel Goldman published his books, he decided, oh, I need to have a measure here. So he started working on a trait-based measure. And his measure is very, very good. But like I say, I go back to the Reuven Bar-On measure, which measures a mix of both ability and trait.
And ability and trait is good because when we're looking at introducing different measurements within an organization, there's also always a danger of overlooking the fact that people have basic skills which they're not tracking. You know, there are other things other than just this emotional intelligence that suddenly jumped in, and everyone thinks that a leader should have this, they should be, you know, I get why perhaps they're saying a leader should have it, but I think everybody should have it, be quite honest, Robin, simply because for me it impacts relationships. But let's go back to what the measurement covers. And you mentioned it covers traits, and also what was the other?
The other's ability.
Right, okay. So I mean, for me, I do track some very basic things when I work with clients. I don't get too complicated on it. And the awareness is definitely one of them, you know, is your awareness sharpening your motivation and your empathy and your own ability to self-assess how you are around people. So I've got a couple of my own personal ways of tracking people. But if we're going straight to one of the tests which you use, if you could tell me which one you're talking about and just give me a couple of things which you might look at, because if you were to present me with one today, Robin, what would you be asking me?
Well, if we go back to the EQI 2.0 assessment, this is an assessment with 153 questions, which takes about 20 minutes to complete. And the questions are, I often tell lies. And you then have to assess, do you always do this or do you never do it? And there's a scale along which you measure your assessment. There's 150 of them, 153 of them. There are a few lie detectors in there. So people can actually, or people in the know, can actually tell whether you're trying to manipulate the assessment and can actually work around that. The other assessments that I've talked about, DISC and Myers-Briggs and Notion, are personality type assessments or behavioral type assessments, and they measure different things. So the EQI 2.0 will measure facets of emotional intelligence, whereas Myers-Briggs measures the strength of somebody's preference. DISC measures behavioral styles within the workplace, And Ocean is part of a gold standard psychological psychometric test that the psychologists really do rate as being the gold standard for measuring personality. Now, the EQI 2.0 measure isn't a measure of personality. It measures emotional intelligence. So it's like having different measures. One's a ruler, measures length. One's a scale measuring mass. And one's a jug measuring volume, where you've actually got to choose the assessment based upon what it is that you want to measure.
Yes, it gets a bit complicated, Robin, so I'm glad that you understand that. So perhaps the bigger question, going back to the top, perhaps just redefining again, why do we need it?
Well, I'm going to be very, very basic here. The reasons why we need it is to improve people's self-awareness. And quite honestly, you can do that with a pack of tarot cards and get people to talk around it, to understand their choices and the behaviors that they've had. It's not very scientific, but if it gets people talking, it gets people gaining further insights into their thinking process and the way that they behave. Great, it works. We want people to be more self-aware when we're working with emotional intelligence. Now, if I go into a large corporate, they want something that they can measure. They want something that is scientific and valid. And then what I can do is open up my kit bag and say, right, what is it that you want to measure, and pull out the right tool for the job. So going back to the absolute basics with emotional intelligence, we want to improve people's self-awareness. And this is a very, very good way of doing it, either with a commercial measure or with some other tool that that works.
A pack of tarot cards. I know you're only joking there, John.
No, I'm not. I'm not. You just need to get people to understand what's happening within their workplace and why they are making certain choices and what it means for them and what it is that they can see. It does take a lot of skill and a lot of experience to do it, but you can do it. Take away the tarot. You can do it with a pack of tarot cards. You can do it with a pack of tarot cards. Do it with a set of images. Do it with a set of photographs of nature, whatever it is. But get people talking about themselves and how they react within their environment to give them the self-awareness that they need.
That is great. I love the way that you kind of humanized that. And I personally do like images. I respond very well to images. Yes. So whether I could cheat your system or not, as you said, there's little lie detectors that are going to come back to that. But, I would get tripped up by the test. But I've got a question here. Let's pull one up, because there's another one. Right. I've got this question here from James, and James is asking the question: do you think that people that complete the tests really appreciate that the results are only a snapshot and just an insight into their preferences? Great question, James. Thank you.
Thank you, James. I think it's vitally important for the person who is setting the test to explain that to people. And when they are reviewing the results with the person, it's important to say, look, this is only a snapshot, and it's only an insight into your abilities and your traits at this particular moment in time. So let's explore what's going on for you in your life, and let's see how that's influenced the answers that you've given. Now, a lot of these assessments are dynamic. The EQI 2.0 assessment is dynamic. The DISC assessment is dynamic. The other two that I've mentioned are not, because they are measuring fixed parts of a person's personality, either their preferences and their choices or their actual personality itself. And these can't easily be changed.
Okay, aspects of our personality can't easily be changed. So that's going back to this nature and nurture. Is it taking it all the way back to childhood? You were born with certain things because you inherited certain genetics, etc. But there's a lot that we do know in life that is not just to do with, nurture, or nature. You're
that's
born
right.
with it.
That's
exactly.
Right.
So you can actually nurture it over time and develop the skills. And Emotional intelligence skills that are needed, as you said, you've explained why we need that. Help you around people, I think, is the main thing, and help you to be aware. And there are different pathways to that. So we've got some more. Let's think. There's another question here. Was a statement perhaps from Mandy, just saying about adults. So let's read the question properly. Many competent adults are operating on a cognitive and a practical level. Some do lack that kind of EI ability, or have the emotional, or have areas of emotional pain that they keep tripping up, and affects their productivity and potential. I've really mullered that question for you, Mandy. I know it's a good statement. So thank you for agreeing. Just thought I'd flag you up there, Mandy. But yes, nice one. So let's get back to then the measurements, because the questions, I want to know, I'd like a sample, if possible, Robin, of the kinds of questions that I would be asked if I did the 2.0 assessment. Would you be
Well,
able to, is that possible or not? Or
well, it is, but I've got to be perfectly honest with you, Joy. I haven't actually looked at the questions for a number of years now. Like I say, a lot of these questions are on what's known as a Likert scale. It's a scale of 1 to 7. And then you make your choice based upon how you respond to the statement, whether it's something that you will always do or whether it's something that you will never do. And there are shades of grey in between. And you make your assessment based upon how you are feeling that the question ought to be answered. Now, a lot of these questions are fairly dynamic, and they all interact with each other to give you your final score. So as far as I'm concerned, these questions have been tested and put together by greater men and women than I am, who've actually gone out and researched them. Do they work? Do they measure what they're supposed to measure? How strong are they in terms of the measure, or how weak they are? So my use of these questionnaires is more in terms of interpreting the results. So I put my confidence in the questionnaire, get people to complete it, and then I look at the results, and my skill is in terms of working with and determining what the results are actually showing me. And it is a bit like reading the tea leaves.
I'm sure it's a bit more precise than that, Robin. You're putting this. It's better than reading the tea leaves and reading the tarot cards, but there's room for everything. But I'm really, because I'm risk, not risk averse. I'm test averse. I kind of break out in a rash when I have to take a test, and I think it's that for me it goes a long way back, and possibly for you, just to school and being tested. So I was just wondering, just one question then, like, Joy, what are you like around people that make you angry? I mean, is it that kind of a questioning, or?
Yes, it will be.
I just don't know, because I've never
a better
taken
type
one.
of question, a better type of question than that. But that's what it will be alluding to. But quite honestly, I share your abhorrence around taking a test, and it links back into the question that James asked a little bit earlier. A lot of people that set these questionnaires are not competent first in delivering it, and also they're not as competent as they should be in terms of interpreting the results. And the reason why I got into working with psychometric assessments is earlier on in my career, I was going along for various jobs and I was being given a psychometric test. And more often than not, the interviews went incredibly well. But when it came to taking the psychometric assessments, I gave them some information that they weren't capable of utilizing appropriately. And it got to the point where I thought, what are these psychometric tests telling people? Often I would lose the opportunity to take up the role because they would say that they found somebody who suited their purposes or had more experience, or the chemistry was right, or whatever it was. But I kept hearing these excuses. I thought, there's something in these psychometrics that I do not like. So this is the reason why I went away to take the psychometrics, and I became qualified, as I say, in terms of using Ocean, or it's also called NEO, and it measures these personality traits. And I recognize that the issue lies in my level of neuroticism. Now, you and I alluded to this prior to coming on to the show this afternoon, because I'm very, very, very calm and collected. I have a low, extremely low level of neuroticism, a very, very high level of stress tolerance. And it comes out in all of the assessments, and people will pick up on it. I'm very, very calm. I'm very relaxed in most situations. And my wife's often said, look, if Robin starts to panic, we all need to panic. And this issue was being picked up, but people did not understand it. They thought I was so laid back, I didn't care. And what they weren't doing was taking the other parts of my personality and infusing that with the low levels of neuroticism. Yeah, if I don't care about something, I really don't care. So the interesting thing is to make me care. And I've got various levels of conscientiousness, of openness, of extroversion. And I will work with my personality to make it work within the corporate environment. But I've got a very, very low level of neuroticism. And I picked up on that by studying the psychometrics.
Well, you went and you dug a bit more deeper into that, and especially when, as you said, if we're going out and we are working around other people, or especially going for jobs, it's been such a long time since I've done that because I've worked for myself, but I never liked any of those tests, full stop. And neuroticism, it sounds like do with the nerves. I mean, I've never heard
that's
that.
What it's measuring.
You know,
that's what it's measuring.
How nervous you are, how anxious you get. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yes,
that is for everyone. Great.
That is what it is measuring. It's measuring your level of neuroticism, your anxiety levels. Now, if it's at an extreme, the other end, I think people have got to recognize that it may cause some problems, and it may lead them into clinical anxiety and into nervous depression. And in these sort of circumstances, I won't go there. That's not the area that I'm trained in. So we can then highlight it, we can have a discussion, and then I would make the recommendations that they need to speak to somebody more qualified than I am.
Yeah. And that's when someone like me would step into, because my background with the therapy and therapeutic knowledge, etc. Yeah. Right. Well, we're looking at having a human being that is nice and rounded and balanced in all kinds of ways. You've been looking at the areas that hopefully are helpful in an environment around other people at work, organizations. I tend to focus on, I suppose, the individual and their individual stuff that's going on, but you're looking at more of the team environment, and then also what qualities makes for a good leader. But what I was trying to pull out, I think, Robin, was just, you mentioned different competencies, like 144, did you say? A huge number?
153.
I was close. Give me a break. I was close, Robin. I was close. Okay. And I just wondered, as like just a list, a section, if you can remember a few of them, because just pulling them out of the air so that people listening can think, oh,
sure.
Yeah,
sure. Well, if we go back to the basic model of models of emotional intelligence, the first component is self-awareness, self-perception. How do you perceive yourself? The second component is around emotional expression and self-esteem, and how you view yourself in the world and how you manage and regulate your emotions. The next component really is around interpersonal relationships. So if I break that one down, it's looking at empathy, it's looking at interpersonal skills, and it's looking at self-actualization, your meaning and purpose in life. And then the assessment looks at your decision-making capabilities. How do you work with problem solving and the like? And then it's looking at your stress tolerance. So it's looking at no, sorry, your stress management. So it's looking at things like your stress tolerance, your optimism, and it's looking at measuring your flexibility. Now, I've only given you a few
That's
just to give
fine.
you a flavour,
Just wanted
but
to get that whole ball rolling. So yeah.
what you do is you will get a measure of the 15 facets, and they all blend together. So if somebody has high levels of stress tolerance, chances are they will have high levels of flexibility and they will have high levels of optimism. Now, if it turns out that the measures are slightly different, we need to, we need to explore what's going on. And to go back to the original question that we had from Bruce, once we've got the full assessment, we can then highlight those aspects of emotional intelligence that a person needs to concentrate on and needs to develop. So it may be, let's pull something out of thin air. It may be that they need to go away and develop their empathy. They've got interpersonal relationships, they've got good skills, they've got a lot of flexibility, they're fairly optimistic, but they can't see it from other people's perspectives. So in that sort of circumstance, in that sort of situation, I would encourage somebody to go away. We would coach and work through some examples of what they could do, what they suggest they could do in order to build up their skills and their competencies in empathy. Now, the great thing about emotional intelligence, unlike cognitive intelligence, is that it's not fixed. So whereas cognitive intelligence is locked at the age of 17, 18, you can't get any more smarter than what you are. Yeah, you can tinker around the edges. But with your emotional intelligence, you've got a whole lifetime ahead of you to become more emotionally intelligent. So what is it that you want to become more emotionally intelligent in? Go away and work on it.
And that's good news to hear, because you asked me the question that, is it something that you just have? Are you born with it? Or is it something that you can develop? And I know it's something that you can develop. We're looking at emotional maturity as a word, because as you go through your, adult life, hopefully you're gaining more experiences and picking up, more ways of being around people, so you can develop the skills. I do believe it's something that you can learn. I think people innately have that, because we're meant to try and gel together, and we've got our basic instincts about being a tribe, staying together. So there's something that we are trying to lock each other into this empathic way of being, but we have probably been around people who we know are not very empathic. So yes, absolutely. We've got some questions here too as well, Robin, but go ahead.
Before I answer that question, I'd like to throw a question out for myself here. Am I emotionally intelligent? Now, that is an interesting question, because if I answer yes, it's rather arrogant, self-conceited, and suggests there's no room for improvement. But if I answer no, what am I doing in the field of emotional intelligence? It depends, Joy. There are going to be certain circumstances where I will go into it. I'll make good decisions. I'll manage my emotions well. I'll build up relationships. I'm pleased with the way I've thought about it. And I come away and I think, yeah, done it really well. And there are other situations that I'll go into that I will completely screw up. Why? Because I'm human like you. And I might be tired, I might be hungry, I might not be feeling particularly well. Somebody may have irritated me. Something will have gone on to prevent me from being as emotionally intelligent as I would like to be. So it's really, the question's wrong. Am I emotionally intelligent? It's work in progress, and it depends. It depends upon the circumstances, but more importantly, it depends upon me.
And that's very honest of you to say that. And I think people do need to hear that. I personally need to hear that, because I know I can be a bit like a tide. I'm like, I have waves of emotion that get in the way of the way that I work.
I do too.
And so it's nice to know that. And unfortunately, for me, it plays into my sense of perfectionistic behavior. things have to be right, black and white thinking. It's either right or it's wrong. It's like, Joy, this is a fluid situation. So emotional intelligence isn't something which you have to be at the height of all of the time. There can be moments when you just mess up, and that's okay. If on the whole, for me, if you care, in my world, Robin, it's about caring about human beings. So whatever helps someone to get there is my thing. And that is about understanding about you. Because I think once I understand about how I'm being, then it helps me to be around you, Robin. Because we can demand other things of other people when we're not even able to do it for ourselves. So there's a lot going on about knowing yourself way before you can know other people.
That's right. It's also about being kind to yourself, being kind to other people. And if you do nothing else than try and be more kind, then you're being more emotionally intelligent.
That's a good answer. Love it. Another question here. I think James has got one. I've got another one that I'll be coming to further down. Now, I was going to be on for half an hour, guys. So if you do need to go, please feel free to leave, come back and have a look at this on the replay, perhaps. But otherwise, I'll just keep going while the interest is there. So James has got another question. Do you know of any tools for social awareness? Because knowing yourself with accurate self-awareness is one thing, but interacting with we mentioned the tarot cards is another, and he mentioned things called pack types. So those are I think I've heard of pack types. Again, ways to help us to start talking about who we are, how other people are around us. Is that a question that you want to answer?
Most definitely, James. Yes, pack types. It's a wonderful tool. I haven't used it, but it's based on DISC, and it is very good at improving people's self-awareness and also the way in which they interact and relate to other people. So it helps in terms of interacting with other people. Some of the tools that I use are some images sets from a company called RSVP Design, rsvpdesign.co.uk. They produce some images tools one's called Images of Organization. And these are cards which contain metaphors of people working within a work environment. So you've got people in a car stuck in traffic. You've got people in a pit stop changing a wheel. You've got people in a garden tending a garden. You've got people in an orchestra playing different instruments. These are just a few off the top of my head. And these are really, really good for helping people to explore what's going on for them within their own organization through the image and through the metaphors. Now, because it's an image, cartoon images, serious cartoon images, and because it's metaphors, people can open up and talk very, very safely about things that are going on for them. So in this sort of circumstance, I would then set up the exercise by saying to them, choose an image that represents what's going on for you in your organization currently. And what would it look like if everything was going really, really well and everybody was being truly emotionally intelligent? And then let's explore the gap between the two. And these images are phenomenal. I've been using them for, excuse me, I'm going to cough. I've been using them for well over a decade, and the cathartic conversations that come from these are absolutely phenomenal. And every time I go into a workshop, I will hear a new story, something that I've never heard before, and people will pull out from the images things that I've never seen before.
That's brilliant, isn't it? It just proves that our imagination is so vast, and words are not always enough, but images speak louder than words. Oh, I pulled that one out from the top of my images speak louder than words. They really do. I'm an image person, so that set of cards would really appealed to me. Now, lots of questions. I've got more coming through. I know that Mandy had one earlier on. It's a very, very long question, Mandy, but we'll put that up there. Let's see if it fits. It's blanked all our faces out. But I would value you asking Robin how important he feels ecological intelligence is, as well as emotional intelligence. In this day and age, don't we need to be aware of how we relate to ourselves and others, as well as how we relate to the world that supports us, especially during this time of change? So you should be interested in Robin's comments if he has one. And it might not be your area of expertise, but there you go. Robin, how do you feel about that question?
I think that's a brilliant question, Mandy,
Lovely.
and thank you for asking me. Yeah, I'm as concerned about climate change as the next person, perhaps even more so. What can I do about it? I'm an emotional intelligence coach, trainer, and facilitator. What I can do is to deal with all the things that I would do as a human being on this planet to try and leave it in a better state than I found it. Now, that means doing all the things that everybody does, which is reducing carbon footprint, reducing waste, everything, recycling. But it goes back to those two words that I mentioned earlier. It's about being kind, and it's about influencing people to take more responsibility for themselves around the planet that we live in. Now, there are groups of people that don't do the things that I would want them to in terms of climate change, but I can't really influence them, me doing what I'm doing. But what I can do is I can make my voice heard by buying products that are ethically sound, by being kind, by encouraging people to look at climate change and make the small difference that they can make. That's what I do, and that's part of being emotionally intelligent.
Robin, I love that. And if I had a flag, I'd be waving it and saying, yay, congratulations. Great answer, Robin. Fabulous answer. And we're getting some lovely feedback. I'll just put this one up here so that this is from David Ray, non-executive director. Great session, Joy. Interesting comments, Robin. So thank you both.
Oh, thank you, David.
Thank you. And Bruce has a question. Now, Bruce has a very interesting question, which I may have to answer and you may have to answer. But how can you strengthen your neurophysiology so that you can gain greater resilience, insight, and interpersonal actions? Yes.
Great. I think it also links into your earlier question in terms of how you're improving emotional intelligence. When we look at the brain is very plastic. And what that means is that we can create new connections in the brain and create habits that are more conducive to what it is that we want to do. Now, this takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to break old habits. So the first part of that is becoming aware of the fact that the habit is not having the outcomes that you're looking for, and making a determined effort to break it and create a new neural pathway that gives you the outcomes that you're looking for. Now, because this neural pathway has not been constructed properly, and as this neural pathway is very young and very tender, it's easily broken. And it will not feel good the first few times you do it, and you'll get feedback to suggest that it's not working. I think what you've got to do is you've got to say, this is what I'm determined to do, and stick with it and create the new habits. And through creating the new habits, it will improve your neurophysiology, it will give you greater resilience, and it will improve your interpersonal actions. But I go back to what I say, it does take a lot of energy and it does take time. It's not something that you can do overnight. It doesn't take a week, it doesn't take a month. It probably takes 3 to 6 months before you start getting any significant change that is of value. Don't give up.
Great answer. And from my perspective, Bruce, I would say that you're always paying attention to what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you end up doing. So thoughts, emotions, and actions. Once you are aware of that kind of cycle that's happening in your life, it gives you a chance to break it. So you're either breaking it by thinking different thoughts, which is, as Robin was saying, repetition of new ways of being, new ways of saying things. You could try and change it on the spot by saying, I'm going to feel differently. That's possible. You can be thinking, how does my thoughts interact with my emotions? There's always a cycle between those two. So you're looking at changing that or changing the way that you behave. So you come straight in at the behavioral thing, just decide, when I want to go to the gym, I'm going to make sure my shoes are at the door. Or when I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to have a sign, stuck on the front of my phone or stuck around the house. You're always, as Robin said, I see it as the neural pathways. As if you're walking through a field, let's say of wheat, if you walked along that path for long enough, you wear it down, and that becomes a very, very strong connection in your brain. So by trying to do something different, hopefully you're letting that field grow over that old pathway. It no longer becomes your default place to go, and you've created another one. So that's my spin on that one.
What
so
a lovely metaphor.
Oh,
what a
well,
lovely metaphor. Thank you.
My brain can only think like that. That's the way it goes, guys, But yeah, everyone's saying thank you. So nice stuff. Mandy Young, very good stuff there. Mandy, been a very, very good contributor today. So I want to
before Mandy goes, she did make she did allude to a particular question, and I would like to pick up on what she was asking. Some leaders seem to have very low levels of emotional intelligence, and they seem to succeed despite that. Now, again, it links into Bruce's question. What they have learned is that certain behaviors will get the outcomes that they're looking for. Now, if we look in the corporate environment, the bottom line, the profitability, the financial outputs are very, very important to a lot of organizations. And so leaders who are very, very task focused and will be focused on getting outcomes often will rise to the top of organizations very, very quickly. And they know that they can get the results that they need by bullying, cajoling, shouting, being generally unpleasant. And they have a level of success with that. And the organization has a level of success with that. But at what cost? In the long run, it's going to be detrimental to the business. And in the long run, it's going to be detrimental to the people that are working for that business. And this is where emotional intelligence comes in. These are the hardest people to train around emotional intelligence. They don't want to know anything about it because, as far as they're concerned, they're very emotionally intelligent. And anybody who is a leader, excuse me, I'm going to cough. Anybody who is a leader who tells me that they are emotionally intelligent is not. And it's a red flag when somebody tells me how emotionally intelligent they are.
Right. Oh dear, everyone's going around saying I'm emotionally intelligent. We can't win, can we? I'd say I'm emotionally intelligent, Robin. So I get what you're saying, but we're looking at people who have found a way through by certain behaviors and nobody has pulled them up on it. That's what right. I'm thinking here, Robin. And unfortunately, my head goes into politics, and I don't even have to go to which politicians I might be thinking of around the world. But yeah, absolutely. You get by through other methods, and those methods probably are through fear. They're fear-based methods. Yes. But if you're getting the results for somebody, then a company might be probably more interested in the fact that you're generating income. They're not looking at the fallout. Because for me, there's no point, you can't be a team of one, Robin.
Yeah, that's right. There's no I in team.
Absolutely. Now I've gone on for a lot longer than I thought I would, but everyone seems to be enjoying the conversation, which is brilliant. Some more feedback here. Let's have a look there. There's Lisa. Amazing session.
You, Lisa.
Joy Langley and Robin Hills. Yeah, so she's really enjoyed that. That's brilliant. Bruce asked the one about neurophysiology. Oh, we've got some more about neurophysiology from Bruce. I'll see what that's like.
Great.
And
Let's
Mandy's
have
saying,
it.
yeah, and Mandy's saying very true leaders should be saying that I have a lot to learn. I have much to learn. That would be the best way to go. The awareness. Let's just get that up, Mandy, because I can't explain it better than you. Yeah, Mandy
I've still
says,
got a lot to learn. I
yeah,
really have
yes.
still got a lot to learn in this field of emotional intelligence, and part of it is coming onto a show such as this in order that it highlights to me what it is that I don't know rather than what it is that I do know.
And you're open to hearing that. So as Mandy said, the true leader is the one that shows that awareness and that humility. So that's great.
Thank you,
So you
Mandy.
wanted to hear the other question before I've got to just put something up here. Let me just get my banners up here so that I can tell you that Robin does have something which you can take away, guys. Okay. I should try and drop that into the actual link so that we can find it afterwards. But this is Robin's book, and it's a very good one too. I've had a quick look at that. I'm going to copy that while let me make sure I'm doing all the right things here. Probably end up losing it.
Just for your listeners, if they don't get the link, if they go to the eiforchange.com website, that's ei4change.com, there will be a pop-up that will come up within 30 seconds that will enable you to download the book. That's probably easier to remember than any link, but the link that Joy's got is good enough and it'll get you straight to the book.
Yes, I'm trying to add it into, I'm getting too clever for my own boots here. I don't know if I'm doing this right or I'm doing this wrong, but I give it a try. I've gone over to LinkedIn. I've dropped that in. Who knows what's going to happen? I really, really don't know. This is where my lack of technical knowledge comes in, but I shall come back to where we're meant to be. Right, so let's get my head together. Yeah, so lots of information that you can glean from this book that Robin does have. I'm going to just make sure I don't lose that and show that again. So the website, which I will probably drop onto the comments on LinkedIn again, but you get this beautiful book, Emotional Intelligence, and it's around his courses and everything else, but quite a good insight into everything there. I enjoyed reading it. And yeah, and I want to make sure that you know how to get through to Robin as well on LinkedIn. Just Robin and Hills. Pretty simple. We all know how to use LinkedIn in that way. And if you need to get through to me, again, I've got two names. I'm a Karen as well as a Joy. So Karen Joy Langley, and that will help you to find me. I'll go back and I will drop these into the LinkedIn feed as well. Yeah, so we're getting towards the end of everything, Robin. And I'm glad that you're knocking some of these myths on the head, because they do need to be knocked on the head, really and truly. For me, the biggest thing was, do we need it? And it might be, depends on where you work. I mean, do we all need to take a test, Robin?
No, we don't. I think that there's a lot of abuse of tests out there, and a lot of people will go out and sell tests, or a lot of organizations will use tests, but not necessarily use them as well as they should do. What I would encourage people to do is to look at improving their self-awareness and look at getting some kind of, excuse me, I'm going to cough again. I do tend to strain my voice when I've got my headphones on, so it does tend to cause me to cough. Oh, thank you, Mandy. You've downloaded the book. Yeah, go away and take a test, but do so with the support of a qualified practitioner who will help you to interpret what the results are and what they mean for you as an individual. When I go back to my experience with psychometrics, I wasn't getting any feedback, and ethically, I should have been given some feedback. And the feedback that I got when I did get some feedback, wasn't worth the piece of paper it was written on. So you really do need to talk with somebody around helping you to interpret the tests, because the tests will say one thing, but really what it is it means something else, and it will mean something else for you. It helps the practitioner to understand how the test works, and it also helps the practitioner to understand how to help you to understand the results of the test better.
Absolutely. It's one of those things, Robin, what's the point of doing something unless it, delivers something meaningful to people? And I think why I probably am anti-tests. I did a lot of studying when I was younger, probably like you, and I just hated the whole process of having to be tested, even though I came out the other end with lots of bits of paper that said I was amazing. I think I'm a bag of nerves. I have nightmares about tests still. So
Oh, I
that's not
still
a
get them.
that's not
Still.
it cannot have been good for us, Robin, to have been put in those situations. So I'm kind of anti it. So if it elicits something decent, then I'm all for
Yeah,
it.
Joy, I think without at the risk of opening up the conversation again, I think this is vitally, vitally important. When we go to school, we want our test results to be the best that they can possibly be. 10 out of 10. Anything less is not good enough. Now, with an emotional intelligence assessment, we don't want all the facets to be 10 out of 10. Their strengths overplayed. A 7 or an 8 is good enough for me. The blend of the facets is the important thing, not the absolute measure. So I think this is part of getting the test. You're not going to be perfect. I'm not perfect. So the measure will demonstrate that. And I think that's part of the fear of the test. So when you take the test, you will not get a perfect result that will sit comfortably with you. It'll open up areas of your life, your personality, your behavior, your emotional intelligence that you'd rather not know about. Go there. The important thing is not to look at your strengths, the highest points. It's not to look at the weaknesses or the liabilities, the lowest points. The real sweet spot is just above the middle of the facets where they are for you. So I think the important thing in terms of being tested is you're not going to get 10 out of 10 scores, nor should you want them.
That's where I would be cheating the system, Robin. So there are kind of lie detector questions put inside them to pull out people like me that want to get 10. Feel like I'm on television getting a 10 on Strictly Come Dancing, but no, a 10 would be good. But you're saying that is not what this is about, Joy. This is about the way that things merge together. So something that might be low might be balanced out by something that's higher, and in reverse for somebody else. But really, the results that you get as the interpreter, that's what the real skill is. And watch out for people who are doing tests, I suppose, or selling tests, and there's not much credence to it. I must admit, I use tests, but I kind of know what I'm looking for, what things I'm going to have as markers, because we need to track things. We do need to track things. But I love what you just said. But now we are going to start winding down. But I just want to just add, you know what I'm like, I just can't do it. But Bruce did have something to add to the question that you asked earlier on, and he liked your answer, which was great. Does one's trauma and anxiety profile affect EQ?
It will do, Bruce, but how it affects you will be personal to you. And if it is something that is beyond my level of capability, then I will certainly highlight that with you and say, right, this is the point that we will go up to. Beyond that point, there are better people to deal with it than I am. And now it might be that you go back to your clinician to seek medical and clinical support, or you go to somebody like Joy and you get some kind of therapeutic input that way. But I have to know where my skills start and where they stop, and where I do not need to or want to go beyond.
And I would say that anything that's happening in your life could affect you from one moment to another. So I'm always focusing on, I suppose, stress, anxiety, all those things that happen in human beings, plus the happy stuff. But I know that some days I'm on top form, like 10 out of 10, Joy. You know, I like 10s. Some days I'm like a 4 out of 10. And that can be because I know that my life impacts me. If I've had an argument with my partner, if someone in my family is sick, you know, there's stuff going on around in my environment that can affect me too. So it's interesting. This measurement, then, Robin, is not, as you said, a once and for all, once and done score. And it is being impacted by outside things in our lives too when we take it. So my desire to have a perfect score, perhaps I should let go of that one. And I don't know how often these tests would be taken. That's my final, I think that's my final question.
Well, the thing is, it depends. If you're looking at something like NEO, Ocean, or Myers-Briggs, you probably don't need to retake it because you will get an answer that will probably be as accurate for you as it possibly can be. Something like DISC is very dynamic. Something like the EQI 2.0 is very dynamic. Now, I wouldn't recommend you take them every 3 to 6 months. They're not cheap tests, but they're very good value for money in the hands of the right practitioner. But I would suggest once you've got an output from it, work with it, work with what it's telling you, look at ways in which you can become better, look at ways in which you can minimize those liabilities, and look at ways in which you can build upon your key qualities, the unique strengths and talents that make you you.
That is a perfect ending, Robin. I will stop you there. So, everyone, thank you very much for listening today. I hope you've gained something from this. And if you do have any more questions, you know, drop them in the comments or contact myself or Robin individually. Please contact me as well if you want to have a 15-minute chat just about anything, life, you name it, what's going on for you. See if there are ways in which I can support you too. As I said, emotional triggers are a big part of life. Robin is the expert on this whole thing about tests. He's the person to contact for these tests. There's free resources there again, and I will make sure I drop that into the links in the actual stream too. And yeah, just been a pleasure having you on today. I've learned so much. I thought I knew a lot, be quite honest. Just goes to show.
And so
Stay
have I.
self-aware.
Thank you, Joy.
Be self-aware. That's what you're trying to say to us, and be open to the fact that sometimes you just don't know. We're all growing, it never stops, and that's the beauty of life. And for me, it's bringing on great guests who are really skilled in what they do. There was one final question. I won't open it up. We'll have to go back to the links and have a look at it. But thank you, Robin, for coming on today. Really appreciated the content and great questions from everyone too. What great questions they were.
Thank you,
Absolutely
Joy,
fabulous.
and thank you, everybody.
Lovely. So just one more time, I'll just put Robin's details up. LinkedIn, Robin Hills. That's all you need to put in. Contact me, guys. Karen Joy Langley. Joy Langley to my friends, but Karen Joy for the purpose of LinkedIn. Too many Joy Langleys on there. But yeah, Joy Langley, that's me. And have a good afternoon, good evening, good morning if it's still morning for you, and catch up with you all soon. Any questions, please send them in. We'd love to hear them. So I shall say bye for now, and I'm going to hit the finish button, and all have a great day, evening, whatever it might be. See, I feel like the Queen, Robin. Don't make me start. Okay, see you all soon. Okay, bye for now.